Hello, everyone, and welcome to ASAE's Tech Insider Day. Thanks for tuning into the demo for Bumblebee. My name is Ashley, and I am a member of ASAE's Virtual Volunteer Relations Department. If you have any questions or issues, please feel free to send me or my colleague, Larry, a direct message in the chat. I know many of you are getting familiar with the virtual platform world, but here's a quick overview for anyone new to the platform. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find your control bar. This is where you can control your video and microphone. We do ask that you remain muted unless called on to avoid the commotion throughout the program. And at this time, no one can speak at this time. Everyone is muted except for our panelists. There is a chat and Q&A available during today's session. Please submit the demo-related questions to the Q&A tab. I'll be monitoring this as well as someone from Bumblebee, and they'll facilitate the Q&A segment at the end of the presentation. If you have any technical issues or conference-related questions, please reach out to myself or my colleague Larry in the chat, and we'll be happy to assist. We do have closed captioning available today. You can turn on and off your closed captions as needed with the closed caption button located on the control panel. If you would like to continue the conversation with Bumblebee, you can do so by using the functions drop a business card or request a meeting on the booth tile in the main space. And finally, we do have a code of conduct for all of our meetings. So please be mindful for those guidelines. For those reasons, we will not be sharing the chat transcripts today. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our friends at Bumblebee, and thank you all for participating.
Okay, I think Duncan is now sharing our screen. Okay, welcome to our Bumblebee demo, and thanks for attending Tech Insider Day. I'm Brittany Carter. I'm the president of Association Trends, and my co-presenter is Duncan Bell, and he's the head developer behind Bumblebee and also our VP of Data Services. So we're going to try to jump right in and get through this presentation, but please, like Ashley said, ask questions in the Q&A box. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it, and I'll either answer the question as we're going, or we're going to take a couple of pauses for questions, both in the middle and at the end. Association Trends and Bumblebee. So some of you might be familiar with, we do education and events throughout the year in the association community, and we also provide a range of content. So Duncan and I both have a background in building data products. And so a few years ago, we acquired an event called AMS Fest, and we really started to have these conversations with associations and that were, looking for a new AMS, and they might have been having issues with their existing system. And what we found was that a lot of times the issues were rooted in bad data and data that needed to be cleaned. And so with both of our backgrounds, we realized we could build something to help associations tackle this data problem. So Duncan, do you want to hit the slide for me? So when we were talking to associations, and it didn't seem to matter what size, right? It doesn't matter if your budget's $1 million or 100 million, everybody has kind of the same data problems, which is you've got data quality and standardization issues, data atrophy, right? Data gets old almost immediately. High levels of duplication because of the way that associations are set up. Your members are often touching their own data and modifying it, and then you've got an event system, an LMS, and everything's kind of feeding into, in some way or another, your AMS, and it's getting duplicated. And then, of course, lack of resources. You are mission-driven organizations, and you're largely there to serve your members, which means you don't always have the time or the money or the appropriate level of staff to keep up with cleaning data. And so we kept seeing that problem. We thought, okay, we've got to build something that can help any association, regardless of the size of their database or the size of their budget. And so we looked around and there wasn't really anything in the market that was doing it. What we were seeing was, you might get from your mail house a report back of postal addresses that aren't great, or maybe somebody in your member services department is correcting information as it kind of comes in. But there's really nothing around, or there hasn't been until Bumblebee, that was taking a comprehensive approach. So what does that mean? That means we do email validation, postal validation, duplicate identification, and standardization all at one time, right? Which is important when you're cleaning data. It has to be as comprehensive as possible. Otherwise, you're always playing catch up. We also knew that we had to build something in a sophisticated way. Chances are you've heard of something, this is a tech audience, right? You might have been doing some kind of VLOOKUP or some kind of match keys, or, looking at different emails and seeing, okay, well, did the email and the last name match? But we knew that it had to go beyond that to really tackle data sets of a substantial size. So we built a sophisticated tool to do that. Then we did something which we think we're very proud of. I really seriously thought of wearing, I have a crown in my office and I thought of wearing it because this is like my favorite thing.
I have one right here.
Oh, how cute. Okay, well, maybe I'll get mine out for the second half. The Queen Bee record. So what that means is we take, and Duncan's going to dig into this from the technical side, but essentially we take all of the duplicates that we find in your data set, we group them together, we score them, and then we identify what is a queen record. And we take that queen record and we say, okay, let's create the best possible record that we can using the best pieces of each data set and each duplicate set. So Duncan's going to dig into how we do that, but we believe that that's truly our special sauce and will save you hours and hours and hours of comparing duplicates and figuring out which one to merge into which one. It's fast and scalable, right? Speed is key when you are dealing with data cleanup because data is changing by its nature all of the time. So from the time we receive your data till the time it comes back clean and with the deduplication guide, you're looking at 5 business days. And then, as all of you likely know, there's a lot of AMSs and a lot of data systems out there in the association space. And so we knew we had to be platform agnostic. And so we can work with data from any set. We've worked with, I think we've done 10 or 12 different AMS platform projects, as well as we've worked with people that just have their data in Excel spreadsheets. So truly, we can work with any different set of data. The format doesn't matter to us. Duncan, let's see, so that is a very quick run through of what Bumblebee does from the higher level. So I'm going to turn things over to Duncan, who's going to talk through the technical side of things from a step-by-step perspective. And if you have questions, put them in the chat box. Hopefully we'll answer them as the presentation goes along naturally. Put them in the Q&A box, not the chat box. But we'll keep things going and hopefully answer your questions. But feel free, don't feel embarrassed. Ask away. We love hearing about different special data challenges.
All right, great. Yeah, I just coincidentally have this crown here. I forget why I have this on my desk, but I kept it for this purpose. I knew it would come in handy someday. So yes, I'm going to walk through how Bumblebee works and kind of walk through the details of it. Not going into too much detail, but give you enough so you have an understanding of the process. It's a 4-step process. The first one actually being hidden here, the receipt of your data. And just a note about that, although we are platform agnostic, we are working actively with several AMSs at this time to integrate directly so that we will be able to leverage existing APIs to extract and put data back in to the AMS. And that should streamline this process even further than what we've built out of the box with Bumblebee. But in any case, how this works is after we get your data, which is the data you'd like to be cleaned, your member records, we pass through this process. First step is we will do some initial data cleansing and hygiene, taking care of some low-hanging fruit. Then we do email and postal validation. And finally, duplication ID and record cleaning, which is where the little crown comes in. I'll get into all that in this order. So the first step, after we get your data, this is where we're taking care of anything that can be automated from a scalable perspective with hygiene. So we're taking care of issues like leading and trailing white space and weird punctuation that exists in your data, standardizing case, like proper case and uppercase in your organization name and your person name columns, things like that. Standardizing field format wherever possible and appropriate. So here I'm talking about phone number format, fax number, state code, country code, things like that, where we can standardize that format for you. We repair email addresses where possible, and we are flagging any obvious issues with your data for future cleanup. This is things like an email without an @ sign or a phone number with only 3 digits. So we do all of that up front, and then we take all of your email addresses and all your postal addresses and pass them through validation. And when I say all of your email addresses, what I mean is, even if you have a primary email address column, alternate email address column, 3, 4, 5 different types, likewise for postal addresses, home address, shipping address, billing address, you get the point. We'll be able to validate all of those at the same time. So taking email first, at the top half of this slide, you can see the 10 codes that we will be appending to each of your email addresses. This is a score that gets delivered to us from our partner that does this validation step. And it's also associated with a 1 to 4 risk score. So for example, a risk score of 4 is associated with a undeliverable, malformed, or spam trap. And those are the email addresses that we recommend you suppress because they're dangerous. We can provide definitions of all of these different codes for you in case anyone's curious. It's also part of the deliverable. With regard to postal addresses, we're doing a few things. We will be validating all US and Canada postal addresses. We do not validate international addresses at this time because it's very expensive to do so. But any international addresses that you do have would receive any hygiene from the earlier step that I mentioned on the previous slide, and all of those features are considered during the deduplication step. With US and Canada, we're doing 2 things. Number 1, we will be assessing the deliverability. So similar to email addresses, we're assessing, is this a mailable address? And that's where we're giving the 1 to 5 deliverability score that you can see bottom here, sorted like that numerically, so it's very easy for you to see your highest and lowest value mailing addresses from a deliverability perspective. And the other thing we're doing is we are checking the change of address databases, which go back 48 months, and correcting any known change of address. That 48 months span is the largest you can get on the market right now, I believe. So that's a great way to identify bad addresses in your database and get those updated. One more thing I'll note here that's interesting, interesting to some of you, I expect. For every postal address that we pass through this step, we will be yielding a few other things. We'll deliver back the standardized post office preferred mailing address format, as well as a residential or business address code. which is quite handy. We use this for our own business recently, where we needed to email, or excuse me, we needed to mail folks who were at a residential address because, of course, because of COVID, everyone's at home right now. So once all of that validation is done and the earlier hygiene is done, we're now ready to begin the deduplication step. I'll also say here that everything I'm about to say about deduplication is also relevant for data matching. The distinction between those two is when you're talking about deduplication, you're looking for matches within a single data set, and data matching is two different data sets and you're matching them together. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here, although we are at the technology conference, so I'll wax poetic a little bit. So we have spent a lot of time optimizing this process. We knew it to be one of the most important features of Bumblebee because you know, there's plenty of ways to find duplicates, but as we all know, you know, due to typos and abbreviations and natural errors in data, natural deviations in ways organization names are spelled or listed. There's any number of ways that duplicates are challenging to find. Maiden names versus their married surname, nicknames, etc. The list goes on. So we took the approach of first identifying all of the identifying information in the data set that would be useful from a matching perspective. This is names, addresses, phones, emails, etc. Then we take that data and we're doing some pre-processing. Here we're taking care of things like deriving a nickname from a first name and deriving a domain name from an email or website, things like that. And then we tokenize all fields for these records that you've given to us. That's just a fancy way of saying we're splitting up into words every field. And then we are doing comparisons to see if there's any two records that share a minimum threshold of the same words. If they share that minimum threshold, they are graduated to match candidates. Match candidates are then scored on a number of features: name similarity, fuzzy similarity, the uniqueness of words present in the names, matching address, email, etc. And all of that is fed into machine learning, which yields a prediction and a confidence score and unifying group ID. And then once we have duplicate groups, let me just take a step back and make sure everyone's following me here. So where we are at this point is we have gone through your data. We have identified groups of records which we believe are duplicates. Now, what we are doing for the queening process, this little crown, we're going to be assigning one of your records a queen bee flag. That is to say that this is the best record of this group. And we're making that determination based on a few metrics: the completeness of the record, how many errors did we discover during the validation step, which is why this is happening at the end of the process, not the beginning, because we needed the result of the validations. And any transactional information, activity information, how recently they're active with your association, how many activities they've done, et cetera. And this logic, by the way, is often heavily customized. We just worked with a customer that had like 12 additional rules they wanted to give to us. And you know, because every data set's different, every association's different. Some examples are, you know, they may want us to consider whether the member is active, if an active member status, or if they have a certification, have they clicked on any emails in the last 3 months? Have they participated on any committees? etc. Whatever the case may be, we can consider that logic as part of this determination. And the reason we're doing this, by the way, assigning one record as the kind of queen bee record of that duplicate group, is that when you need to go do the merging process within your AMS, you typically need to begin with one record and choose it as the kind of starting point. So choosing a best possible starting point will make that merging process all the more streamlined. But one problem with that is, as you can see here, let's take this example of 3 duplicate records. Maybe let's say we just assign the top row here as that queen bee record from the first step here. But no one row here has optimal details, does it? In this case, that first row has a bad email address, but the good email address, the one that seems to be valid, is in that third row. So this is the cool part about the queening process that we've built. What we're doing here is automating what's called data survivalship rules, which are a key part of master data management when you're dealing with duplicate reconciliation. That is to say, when you're dealing with a set of duplicates, you need to survive specific elements that will be persisting in the resulting record after the merge. We're all familiar with this if we've done any merging process. And we all know that that's kind of typically done by a human being who's making those selections. Yep, this address looks better, this phone number looks better. I prefer this first, middle, and last name, etc. Well, we have automated all of that human logic as part of this queening process. As you can see here in this illustration, what we are doing is leveraging everything we've learned about your data set up until this point, the validation results, for example, all of the standardizations that we've implemented, and yielding the kind of golden queen record for each duplicate group. And this can be used to be imported along with your otherwise available Bumblebee corrections and leverage as part of the duplicate merging process. And that will save you countless hours of doing that kind of human reconciliation of duplicates during our merging process.
Yeah, Duncan, I mean, I think it's,
go ahead.
I think it's worth noting, what we hear a lot on calls is that what's happening when people are finding duplicates, right? Because you probably have some kind of duplicate ID tool in your AMS. We have it in our CRM that we use Salesforce, and there is a tool, right, that can help us find duplicates. But then traditionally what happens is somebody on your team is looking at the duplicate records and thinking like, okay, I'm going to move this data point over to this record and move this here. I'm going to keep this. I got to Google if this is the right address. That takes so much time. And so this is intended to, and this is a conversation that came up because at one point in my career, that was my job, was to do this many years ago, right? So like, I remembered how painful that process was. And, when we got into a conversation, I said, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? And turns out Duncan, if you ask him, he builds it. But this is really intended to, nothing's perfect, right? You're probably not comfortable, like just allowing it's hard for us as humans to like allow the system to make all the decisions, but we're making them and putting them as far down the path as possible. You might still want to look at them, right? Like when you're doing the merge process, and most systems actually force you to look at them anyway. Very few will allow you to do auto merge. But this is just going to give you a lot of assurance and save you a lot of time, which was the primary goal.
Right. Yeah, I mean, with Bumblebee, our philosophy is, take everything that can be automated as part of a data hygiene project and let's automate it. That's what Bumblebee is. Now, as far as the deliverable, it is returned to you in an Excel file. I'll add an asterisk here for those AMSs for which we are developing integration. The deliverable is also the reinsertion of your clean records.
And Duncan, while you're talking about this, we have a question. And Brian, if you could share, if you don't mind, or you can message it to us separately, which AMS you're using. But Brian is asking, and I think this is a good time to answer it. When you say the code is appended to the email address, do you mean that we need to go through and manually update those email addresses in the AMS? I think he's talking about the validation codes. And so we can talk a little bit about that, Brian, and we'll answer that now. It's going to depend, with email in particular, we're not changing the email. We're making a suggestion on whether or not that email is safe. And normally what we tell people is if the email is deemed unsafe or high risk, we suggest you actually delete it or make it invalid. So it's a little bit different, but with like a postal address where we're making an actual address correction, that can be pushed directly into your AMS. And then it's just depending on which AMS it is and how it gets pushed in, but it wouldn't be like you would go in and hand correct every mailing address. I hope that answers your question. If not, you can type a follow-up question.
Yes, so I'll take both of those. So with regard to emails, the way that works is you'll receive back a report with all of your email addresses and then the validation code right next to it. So you can see, okay, filter to show all the ones that need to be suppressed, and then you could handle those in a different way. We do recommend that you do that to protect your email IP address to avoid spam traps. And with regard to postal addresses, yes, so we would be taking care of any address corrections and delivering those back to you. So actually, this is a great segue into what I have to say here. So the Excel report is including these 4 tabs here: summary tab, clean, flagged, and duplicate report. I'll take them in that order. So for the summary tab, that is where we are providing a overall perspective of your database's health and just a summary of what was done to your data during the Bumblebee process. And then the clean and flag tab are 2 different ways that we're giving your data back to you. They're essentially the same thing, but there's a very important difference. In the clean tab, in the flagged tab, we are delivering your data back as is with no changes. So we have not made any direct changes overwriting your data. And instead, on that flag tab, we have added additional columns where we are making the change suggestions. So they're available there in the same sheet, but we have not overwritten your values. That's not the case in the clean tab where we have done that. In the clean tab, we have replaced the original data with our standardizations, our hygiene, any corrections that was done, for example, like Brittany was just saying, any mailing address corrections, we would be implementing those there, any repaired email addresses, etc. All that stuff is overwriting the original values there. But we give you both perspectives to give you that maximum flexibility upon that re-import process, because having been through this ourselves, we know that certain data types may need to be handled differently or one at a time. And it's just useful to have both perspectives at your fingertips. And then the duplicate report is what it sounds like. We're going to be providing you all of the duplicates that were identified, all unified with a group ID. So you can easily filter to show all of the members of a duplicate set. And then that confidence score is the output of our model, which is very handy because it allows you to isolate high, medium, and low confidence matches and escalate the perhaps lower confidence ones for more manual review before you push that merge button, because I think we all should have a healthy anxiety about merging two records that should not be merged. But we're very pleased with the performance of the duplicate prediction model. That confidence score is very useful because it kind of takes care of all those obvious duplicates, filters them to the top, and then really you want to be spending a little more time looking at the ones in the middle at the bottom that maybe should not be merged, but nevertheless got caught by the machine because they're similar enough to be considered as a potential merge. And then that also is going to include the output of that queen bee process, where you are going to have that kind of optimum, maximally great record for each duplicate set that can be used in place of one of the records when you're doing that re-import process. As far as the re-import process goes, unless we are integrated with AMS, we will not be involved with the re-import into your AMS. However, we are flexible in the deliverable format, and we can give it back to you in a format that would make it maximally easy to re-import the cleaned up contact records back into your AMS. We can work with your AMS as well to determine what that format might be. With regard to merging of duplicates, at this time, we don't have a solution for any auto merge or taking care of the merging itself within the AMS. However, and that's actually because most AMSs do not have such an option. But that's something we're actively working on with many folks. But the deliverable for Bumblebee, what it does do is provide kind of a roadmap to handle that merging process. So it is as easy as possible. You could hire a temp, even someone who doesn't need to necessarily be a subject matter expert on your data set, and using the Bumblebee guide can go through those duplicates and merge them in a rather rote process because of all of the work we've done to automate that kind of business logic to survive the best features along the way. And this last point, I like to emphasize that speed. So some of you might have thought of this. We do pride ourselves on how fast we can get the data back to you. It's 5 business day turnaround. But if you give us data on a Monday, and then we'd give you the deliverable on the following Monday, well, there were probably some changes that occurred in your database on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And you may not want to overwrite those with whatever we provide back to you on that Monday. So that kind of reconciliation between the more recently updated data and the clean data will only grow the longer you take to get the Bumblebee corrections implemented. And so we always recommend that you have a plan to do that quickly, and we can work with you to help you do that as well.
Yeah, please don't attempt to do this either immediately before or immediately after your annual conference or something like that, right? You want clean data going into that event and after that event, but you need to be thinking about it and treat it as an all hands on deck situation to get that data back in. So that's something that we really do, plan it for a time where you can be ready to receive that data back, and at the very least to get it back into your system. The merging portion might take a little bit longer, but getting the data back into your AMS and overwritten is important to do quickly, and then obviously have the plan for the merging right away. I mean, the hiring the temp, that's an ideal situation, especially that's what we've seen larger organizations do. If it's a smaller organization and a smaller data set, sometimes people will divide it up between the staff, and we would love to see it be more automated, the actual forced merging. It's just most systems just won't allow it. So if anybody has a system that will allow it, let us know. But there are just some complexities there, and I think that there is like Duncan said, there is just a lot of anxiety around the auto merge. So we totally understand why it is the way that it is. Duncan, there's a question in the let me answer this one first. Would you suggest that organizations undergoing a change of database of records do this before, during, and after? I'm going to answer that one first, and then Juan, I'll answer your question. Before and after, Tobin. So we see this a lot where we have an organization that's moving from one AMS to another. And the thing is that if you have the time to do it and build it into your schedule, if you can, your migration schedule, is to clean the data in the existing system of record that you are using. And the reason is, it seems like, oh, well, we're going to do all this work and then move. And the thing is that moving it is just going to be more costly, more time consuming. You might have data size limits or something going on in your new system, but regardless of all of that, the big thing is that you want to have that data clean so that you're only moving the good data, the clean data into the new system. It's only going to take, like we said, a week to give us the data and get it back. And so if you build that into your schedule and then maybe give yourself another week for merging and all of that, it is well worth the time spent to do it before you move. Because when you want to go into the new system, exactly, clean out your garage before moving, right? Exactly, Tobin. It's, getting your house in order is important before you move, but then wait another 6 months once you're in the new system, run it again. And that brings up a point that, we need to touch on, which is that Bumblebee is a subscription offering, so you have access to it for a full year. And so people that are moving, it's a great time to use it because you can use it before you move your AMS, wait 6 months or 4 months or however long you want to do it, or wait until after your annual conference and clean it again. Because data cleaning and data hygiene is not a one-time deal, right? It is an ongoing commitment because data is constantly changing. I want to answer Juan's question, but Duncan, I'm going to let you take it. Talking about data security while we're working with our customer data and how we receive that data.
Yes. So the way so first of all, if there is a preferred method of delivery, transfer of data for you, we would use that. That's totally fine, whatever you're comfortable with. But we have built a secure FTP site that allows you to get a login, post your data, and then only we have access to it. And then following our completion of the project, we'll be deleting those files from our servers.
I hope that answered your question, Juan. If you have any other questions, you can let us know. All right, so talked about, Duncan, are you wrapping up? Because I thought we should just talk a little bit about the output document and all of that. Are you ready to get to that part?
Oh, yes. So let's see. We do have some time, so we might as well do that. Yeah. So let's show you.
We have so we have a few minutes left. So this is a rather robust document. So what I would tell you is if you have questions about it, use the little drop business card or just shoot us an email or, send us a message, but we can share this file with you much more in depth. There's a lot to dig into. We'll just show you a couple of high level points that you're going to get out of it. But again, we're happy to talk to you about it more in depth and really walk you through the document.
Yes, I didn't expect to have enough time to do this, but you're right, Brittany, we should use the time. So I'll go quickly here. I'm not going to spend too much time on this tab. This is the summary tab where we are providing some overall statistics on what was done to the data set, email scores, postal scores, change of address, etc.
It's a great resource to have for benchmarking. So if you have an executive team that you need to share this with or a board that you need to share this with, This is great to look at, like the first time you run Bumblebee versus when you run it again in 6 months. And really, it gives you a metrics of your performance and how your data is improving over time.
Yes, and let's see, there's the clean and flag tab, like I was saying, the difference being that in the flag tab, we have not made any changes to the data, and in the clean tab, we did. So a good example is right here. If you pay attention, you can see that in this case, it's a pair of duplicate records, 2 Adele Battistons, and one of them has a leading semicolon, the other one is all caps. But if I click over to BB Clean, you'll observe that those issues were resolved. In these green columns here, this is the output of the duplicate identification model. We're providing you the group ID, that queen flag, a confidence score. And this is how you're able to see those very obvious duplicates from those that might need more review. Henrietta is probably not the same person as Henry, and that's reflected here in this very low confidence score. Anything below 50% would not be counted here at all. But we're very pleased with the performance of the model. I'll show you one of my favorite examples. This one, let's see, can you see that? It's got different first name, last name, and email address, and yet we still caught it with an 88% confidence thanks to the multifaceted approach to the way we capture duplicate information. We're only going to be showing you something in these green columns when there is a duplicate record. So if I scroll down, you'll observe there is nothing in these rows. That's because we did not find any duplicates for those records. So we're doing this for all the records, and we're only identifying the duplicates in these columns where appropriate. If I scroll over, and I'm just looking at the clean tab here, of course, this is, we're benefiting from all of the phone number standardization here. And if I scroll over, you're seeing the mailability scores for each mailing address. In this case, this sample data set we're using has 2 different address types. So you've got a home address and an employer address, and those are being reported separately in separate columns with this kind of naming convention. And that would be derived based on your data set as appropriate. For change of address, if we have a known change of address, then that's isolated this way, and those changes would be directly applied in your data itself in this clean tab. The same is true with regard to validations. That's also going to be showing up for emails as well over here.
Great. So we, as you can see, there's a lot of information in here, and we're happy to walk you through it on a more in-depth call after tech is over. If you have questions, please let us know. I hope you guys also checked out. I think it's super helpful for people that maybe are less technical or just need a high-level primer of what Bumblebee does. We have a video on our tile, like the section of the Insider platform that you could take a look at. We get this question a lot, so I'm just gonna answer it here. A lot of people say, okay, well, I cleaned my data and then I discovered that a bunch of my emails are bad, or I'm missing phone numbers, or the addresses are bad. We do provide follow along research services that some people use, and we always have a consult call with you to make sure that it's something that would be a project that would make sense for us to take on. But we do conduct research for certain clients following their use of Bumblebee. We've done them doing email research, phone number research, all of those types of things. So those are available. We normally recommend that you use Bumblebee first, because you don't want research being done on data that's not useful to you or is duped up anyway. You're going to waste your time and money. So if you have questions for us, please let us know. Like I said, Bumblebee is a subscription service. It has a base level of records that included with every subscription, which covers, I would say, 90% of associations. It's up to 200,000 records a year, which is going to cover most of you. Although we have done projects that are over 1 million records, and we've done projects that are a couple thousand records. So really all over the map. This tool was built to help truly any type of organization in the association space. We want to make data hygiene and deduplication accessible for everyone, not just people with enormous budgets. So we're excited to bring on new users as we go into hopefully a better year 2021, and hopefully get to meet some of you guys in person next year at Tech. We certainly miss seeing all of your lovely faces and answering questions in person, but thank you again for coming. Duncan, I think the Matchbox person had to leave, so you now control the meeting, so you're able to close it down, but thank you again, and have a great conference, everyone.
Bye, everyone.